Welcome back. We're back. Two fans, one Paul, myself, David Quiz, lovely co-host KB Kirk Brown. Semifinal recap. It's flying by. Some great games. NFL's been great. Haven't been watching much, but the scores have been close. Some great games to talk about. KB. I mean, the first game, obviously, Indiana just does what Indiana's doing right now against Oregon. But love to break down the games with you here in a minute. Throw it to you out in Arizona, and then we can jump into the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, certainly one good game. I mean, the other game, one team certainly played really well, but it wasn't, I would consider, a good game, especially how it started. It was kind of all over from the beginning with all the turnovers. But yeah, the Ole Miss versus Miami game, there was answers back and forth many different times. You thought Ole Miss maybe scored a game winner, and then Miami, led by Carson Beck, who really struggled in this game at times. I mean, I think we all kind of expected that with how he's kind of played with this Miami defense leading the charge. He ends up able to lead a charge, gets a rushing touchdown in. They basically rushed two guys, maybe a third, but the third guy got knocked down, and they had no one watching the QB, no one on an entire half of the field. Pretty poor defensive call there. And Miami ends up winning it. Could have been arguably a pass interference. There's a lot of hand fighting down the sideline on the last play of the game. I don't think it was egregious enough to necessarily call, but I think if that's just a regular downfield shot play, it's probably called. I always hate that games come down to that. The last play of the game is always officiated completely differently than any other play in football. But really impressive win for Miami. Now they get to host the national championship game. Miami Stadium will finally be full with fans, but just like usual, it won't be a majority Miami fans, maybe. I'm just joking. But yeah, really impressive win. I was able to watch a lot of this game. I did miss the first quarter as I was driving back home from work, but really fun game. Quiz, some thoughts quick on it? Anything?
Yeah, I watched a good amount of the game, and I think what needs to be said once again is these Miami lines. I mean, on offense, Fletcher, 22 carries, 133. Only along in 19, but over and over and over and over again, it was 5-6 yards a pop. They're pushing guys around, no problem. Carson Beck, did what he had to do. Obviously, that touchdown was really big. Yeah, and obviously on defense, they didn't get a ton of sacks, but they were getting in Chambliss's face, and they only had one sack, but they were making him move around. He was pretty good at getting out of the pocket, and once again, Trinidad had a great game, 23 for 37, 277, and a touchdown. Ran for 7 yards.
He thrown 4 picks in this game, though.
Yeah, he wasn't.
So many dropped interceptions.
Wasn't the best on Miami's defense. The D-line, though, created pressure, but not as much as it did in the other playoff game. Yeah, he was kind of off. I would say the first half, Ole Miss's offense was off in general. And then the second half, they really figured it out. I know K1 Lacey did get a little banged up towards the end of the first quarter, or end of the first half. He had a big run for 73 yards and a touchdown, only 11 carries. So I think he was a little banged up compared to 51 carries for Miami, and they really leaned on that run game. The lines make the difference. I think the offensive line for Miami really stepped up. Cristobal's an offensive line guy, I'm pretty sure. I thought Ole Miss had it, and then, they had that play like you explained at the end with just zero, must have been cover 0, cover 1. There's just nobody was around, no spy. Obviously not what you're expecting. Beck is relatively athletic, but and then on the flip side, Ole Miss, with no timeouts, maybe they had one timeout in 30 seconds. They moved the ball down the field pretty quick, KB, and they had a chance. I didn't really like the play per se. It was kind of in the back of the end zone, back of the left corner, when in reality I would love to have more of a Hail Mary setup like Michigan State, Wisconsin 2011, where you have a bunch of guys kind of in the end zone, kind of in the front of the end zone, and then a couple guys in front to catch and maybe get in. But obviously, hindsight's 2020. Great game. I thought, I wanted Ole Miss. They were right there, and I think the Miami line really stepped up. And then Beck at the end had some moxie, was savvy. He really didn't rush, and he made some big throws down the stretch, and obviously the run for the touchdown to go ahead. Great game. Wish Ole Miss was in the final, but not much else to say besides Miami just did enough to earn that win.
Yeah, this was definitely a back-and-forth game. I mean, like you said, Trinidad made 2 tremendous throws to get the ball into, Hail Mary range, and I was kind of upset with that they didn't, Hail Mary it. They basically just threw, a slot fade play as time expired. I really wish that they would have either tried to, because I think they had maybe 6 or 7 seconds left, so I don't know. I don't remember if it was, 4th down or whatever, but I really wish that they would have been able to maybe get some more yards and then just run a traditional play, just because the slot fade is a very difficult play. Refs aren't likely to call the pass interference. If that's a regular possession, that's pass interference. But due to the end of the game they aren't. And so a Hail Mary play there, or maybe even like a hook and ladder play where you just kind of get the ball and play and see what you can do is maybe optimal there. But yeah, really impressive performance. And like you said, Quist, they were able to just really run the ball. Shamar Brown had a pretty good game, 14 carries for 54 yards as a backup running back that really hadn't been used much this year. He has 469 carries on the year. He's a North Dakota State transfer that had over 1,000 yards last year. So happy for him. But Mark Fletcher had himself a really good game. And then when you said Quan Lacey, he had a hamstring injury after that long run. I think he pulled his hamstring a little bit, so he was less effective the rest of the game, which I think you could tell and I think was really impactful for this Ole Miss offense. They basically turned into only a pass offense from that part forward. I think there was a point in the game where on 1st and 10, they had thrown 14 out of 15 passes or something like that. So they kind of got into that rhythm after, they kind of got into that formula where they're passing. And I think Trinidad Chambliss did good with all the pressure. Like you said, he had to avoid a lot of pressure in this game, and you didn't really see the sacks, but I'm sure he got flushed out a lot. His legs were not really dynamic in this game. He only rushed for 7 yards, but he evaded a lot of different plays when he was able to make some throws or avoid really negative plays that we've seen some other teams fail to do on this Miami team. And this Miami team continues to do great things. Malachi Tony didn't necessarily have a world beater game, 81 yards, but he caught a ball, broke 3 tackles, like a play that should have went maybe 4 or 5 yards. He turns into like a 36-yard touchdown. Yeah, exactly 36-yard touchdown pass. And like those are the things where like a young kid like that just takes over a game is really impressive. And Keelan Marion, number 0, had 114 yards in this game. Really impressive. He's a UConn and BYU transfer, having the best season of his career. And there's one last thing I want to correct, and I think the narrative, especially the ESPN narrative when talking about Carson Beck, and I'm sure that they talked to him, but like this dude lost like 2 games as a starter at Georgia, lost his job due to his elbow getting injured, and Georgia basically being like, hey, we've had this young guy in the program for a long time in a similar way that you were the young guy for the program. If you wouldn't have got injured, you probably would have declared, like, we were prepared for you to kind of move on. We don't want to retain you coming off of an injury. It's kind of like a false equivalence that like they didn't appreciate him. Now, his gameplay last year definitely struggled, and fans were upset with how he played last year at times, but he played poorly through long stretches last year, turned the ball over a lot. In similar ways that he did this year, when you think about the Louisville game, I believe where he threw 4 or 5 picks, and then also the SMU game where he turned the ball over on like the 3-yard line on a 1st and goal where they had an opportunity to win the game because SMU only scored 3. So like, I just think it's unfair to kind of throw that narrative onto him. I mean, he had 12 picks last year, had 11 this year. He had some real inopportune games, and I just think that he had 4 picks against Louisville, and then he had 2 in the double overtime loss to SMU. So like those things is like this, they still came up this year. He still threw 11 picks, and I just hate that kind of how this narrative has changed. Is like, guy, like you were a 2-year starter, regressed in your 2nd year. You get injured. You couldn't throw a ball for 6 months or for like a couple months, and like you wanted Georgia to kind of wait on you. Like I just don't get that narrative, and I think it isn't like true to kind of how Georgia fans in general feel about his time there and kind of the reality of the situation. He has 2 rings to himself as well because of Georgia, you know. So I just want to make sure that we're aware of that narrative because Herb Street talks the hell out of that narrative whenever he plays. Every single time I hear him talk, he's like, well, he's finally having fun playing football again. Like, yeah, dude, I'm sure when you're throwing a bunch of picks, it probably isn't as fun as not throwing a bunch of picks. So.
Yeah, I just got to say, Tony, for a freshman, for his size, great at blocking. He does a lot of little things right. And on top of that, I do want to say the O-line for Miami, which I've talked highly about already today, when they do their screens, KB, I don't know if it's Ole Miss set up on defense, but they would just get out, at least 2 or 3 guys. The center, the guard, the tackle on that side just got out there and would block like when Tony scored, but they did it multiple times. They're a heavy screen team. And if you can get a big boy that's 250, 300, 350 pounds out there and moving, good luck. Especially the guy like Tony that's pretty elusive. He's not a huge guy, but man, for an 18-year-old kid, he is a really good special player. He had a catch, too, that was ruled out of bounds where it was just like one-handed, not even close to him. Even if it's not a catch, it's a great effort. So, got to shout that out. I think, too, KB, one thing I want to talk about was the field goals for Ole Miss. I think that's what really hurt them. Obviously, finishing drives is important, getting touchdowns, and it seems like that was a hindrance to them a lot of the season. And they kind of have a lot. They have a lot of faith in that kicker. I mean, he's got a boot. He had a 58-yarder. He missed one, which is unfortunate. Obviously, the game might have been maybe a slightly different. Obviously, 30-31 would have been the final still. But finishing drives was huge, and you could just tell even when they scored the touchdown towards the end, it was something that they were struggling with. So I just want to shout that out because when you kick 5 field goals to their 2, that's a lot of points left on the field.
That is an important part, but we also got to remember the length of some of those field goals. 4 of the attempts were over 50 yards, like in that 50. So it's not like they're in the red zone and they're settling. They're in the high red zone that normally you'd either have to go for it or kick a 20-yard punt that doesn't normally happen, right? Because they're getting the ball to the 40. So you got to make sure that when you're thinking of these things that like, hey, how long are these field goals? Sometimes settling for field goals that other teams can't even attempt is a bonus. You think of like Jacksonville this year as an example of the NFL. Cam Little can hit 60-yarders. Like they don't have to get the ball as far down. They don't have to settle for field goals if they can make those kicks. So I do think that was a point in that I thought at times Ole Miss should have been possibly a little bit more aggressive, especially with how long their defense has sat on the field, how good Miami was at running the ball. But yeah, like those opportunities only happen because they have such a good field goal kicker, which can kind of be a negative because when you think that you have points in your pocket, it's really hard to settle for going for it at times too, especially with how tightly contested this game was at time. It's not like either team was really playing down a lot, so there wasn't really a need for, all right, we really need to push for a touchdown here. All right, we can settle for a 50-yarder.
That's a good point, KB. And talking about plays and possession, Miami had the ball for 41-22, while Ole Miss only had the ball for 18-38. I think I remember seeing it was like 50-something plays to maybe 80 or 90 for Miami. I can't remember. I don't see the stat on this team stats, unfortunately, for plays, but yeah, I do. Obviously, possession is enough here. Pretty much doubled possession, and obviously how the run plays that Miami was running just in the heart of that Ole Miss defense really makes a difference. But yeah, the Ole Miss kicker has an absolute rocket of a leg, and kudos to him. But yeah, maybe being a little more aggressive. I don't remember if they were 4th and medium, 4th and short, or 4th and longs, but obviously leaving points in the field here and there. I know when it's a long field goal, that's nice to have in your back pocket, but touchdowns are the name of the game, and leaving points in the field is going to make you lose the game even when you played pretty good. But, man, 18-38 for possession is brutal. So, obviously, the run game not being there for Ole Miss with Lacey getting a little banged up is tough to see.
Yeah, it looks like 88 plays to 60, which is definitely in that. When you get to gaps of 20 points, you can definitely see the offense start to lean on them, especially in the second half in the run game. That like last drive, you could really see moments of that. I honestly thought Miami should have ran the ball more. I think they put the ball in Carson Beck's hands a couple too many times, and it led to some misses. One of the key indicators of this game, and this is the last thing we'll talk about before jumping to the other game, 11 of 19 on third down efficiency versus 2 out of 10. That's being in really good position on third down, being able to run the ball right. All those are indicators. 2 for 2 on fourth down, another indication you're getting short yardage. One of the things that really hurt Miami in this game, and something that's going to impact them in the Indiana game, and I really hope that we can get a resolution to this, is Keontae Scott, I believe his name is, left the game with the targeting 15-yarder. I thought it was a pretty bang-bang.
Was that the one in the second half?
Taking a couple steps, and he's going to be banned. He's going to be ineligible for the first half of the Indiana game. One of their starters is out due to that rule, which is always impactful. They had 10 penalties for 74 yards versus 4 for 34. So a lot of those penalties helped keep some of those drives going for Ole Miss as well that were just stupid penalties. After the targeting call, there's also a late hit call that wasn't like wildly egregious, but was definitely late and a good call that you and I had texted about. So it'll be when Indiana plays Miami, and that would be a game we obviously would preview later. That discipline, Indiana has extreme high-level amounts. Can Miami match that? Because when you make mistakes like this, when you have 10 for 74 penalties, you commit the only turnover of the game, this game might look vastly different if Indiana's on the other side, come Monday in in a week or so.
Yeah, that's a good point, KB, and we'll have to see. I think I heard the guys the commentators talking about all the penalties that Miami's had throughout the year, and it hurt them probably in their losses as well on top of turnovers. So a sad way to watch Ole Miss go out. A good game, a good fight. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Trinidad probably going to the draft unless he gets he's going to fight his case, obviously, for not getting his 6th year. But we'll have to keep our eye on that. Honestly, the way he played, I think he probably could be some middle round pick in my opinion, but he could make more money at Ole Miss knowing college football these days.
Yeah, most likely a fourth, fifth round pick, maybe even sixth, but it'll depend on how he translates into the draft, obviously in the combine. But sounds like Deuce Knight, former Auburn highly touted guy, he is going to Ole Miss. Sounds like transfer portal. So all indications are that Trinidad is most likely not going to sue the NCAA, most likely going to try to just enter the NFL draft. So we'll see how that goes, but them picking up Deuce Knight is kind of a clear indication that they're not interested in maybe riding that path out.
Absolutely.
But anyone would be lucky to have him.
Yeah, I think he's. It's a good story. Obviously, it's a local kid, so we'll keep an eye on that. Just because I probably watched him play when he was in high school, and kind of cool to see him now. He's gotten a lot bigger and a lot better, KB, to say the least. But let's go to Indiana being Indiana this year in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Indiana, and I got to say, KB, there were so many Indiana fans there as well. Obviously, easier travel from Indiana to Atlanta compared to Oregon, but still, that was awesome to see. Bloomington 2.0. But Indiana wins 56-22. Just a blowout. I mean, what was it at half? 35-3 or something, or 7?
35-7.
Yeah. And, turnovers are the name of the game. Pick 6 to start. Fumble when Moore kind of goes back. They got a lot of running backs in the portal. They kept on saying that. And when he goes back to throw it, it's his elbow, fumble, recover in the red zone. And there might have been another pick or fumble that was within, plus territory as well for Indiana. And they cashed in. When I mean cashed in, Mendoza's stats, 17 for 20, 177. So not a lot of yards, 5 touchdowns. I know Charlie Becker had a heck of a catch again. I'm glad he's healthy. It's cool to see a white boy get out there and make some plays. And then Elijah Surratt made some big boy catches, man. He had 7 for 75 and 2 touchdowns. He's really good. And Cooper only had 3, but he had a tutty. And Riley Nowakowski as well, the tight end we talked about, he had a decent game. And obviously the Indiana defense really did a lot. Pick 6 to start the game, making sure Dante Moore wasn't comfortable getting. They had 3 sacks. I probably let things kind of go a little bit easier in the second half. I stopped watching after halftime and watched some TV shows I need to catch up on. So the Indiana defense did their thing. Dan Lanning just praised Indiana for how they played. Didn't really talk down about his guys. I think sometimes that's what you got to do in games like this, where Indiana was just put their ears back and let it rip. And Dante Moore struggled a little bit with that pick to start and the fumbles. And when you have a short field and you have a team like Indiana that plays well together, they're going to score. And obviously Mendoza is very efficient. Once again, having less incompletions to touchdowns, which is 2 weeks in a row in the playoff, which is absolutely insane stat, KB. And then Indiana ran the ball well as a team as well, with Black, Hemby, Martin, and Mendoza all running for over 20 yards. And then Black, once again, really coming up strong in the playoff, KB, 2 touchdowns. Not much to say for Oregon. The running backs, I think for me is an interesting one because I think 2 guys are in the portal, and that obviously really hurt them here with the fumble and whatnot.
Yeah, they had to have a freshman, and they had a guy that was pretty beat up entering the game. That's the impact of the transfer portal in real time. Just running back by committee. Well, if you're not going to commit to me, I'm going to go commit elsewhere to a place that will. Right, that was the impact there. You have 10.5, I believe, tackles for loss, or 10 tackles for loss for Indiana. Just can constantly put pressure on. But when you think about it, pick 6 to start the game. You're already on the back foot. You come down, even it up.
Good answer.
And then Indiana comes and scores. And then, the real turning point in the game is when you have I believe it was a true freshman running back in there, and there's a pull-out fake on just an easy zone, and it hits the ball out of Dante Moore's hands. It's not Dante Moore's fault. It's the running back's responsibility to clear the quarterback. That leads to a turnover, easy touchdown. Then you have the second sack fumble. And then something else in this game is Fernando Mendoza had 2 fumbles in this game. Both got recovered by Indiana. This game could be completely different if the 2 fumbles that Moore had get recovered by Oregon, 2 fumbles that Mendoza have, they keep. It's just this team is they just don't stop. They keep attacking, and they're just able to play such mistake-free football at times that other teams are just not matching that level of precision, not matching that level of intensity for every single rep. And then Mendoza just hasn't missed the ball the last 2 games, right? Like 5 touchdowns, 3 incompletions. He's so accurate. Teams haven't been able to get pressure on him really at all. It just 177 yards, and people talk about total yards. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of total yards because they had like 5 possessions start in Oregon territory. They didn't stop them at all, though. And then in the second half, when the game was, well over, you finally have Oregon put up touchdowns on 2 of their last 3 drives. So I'm not really looking at that. It was 42-7 by the time Oregon scored, their 15th point. It was just over by then. So really impressive performance by Indiana. Can't believe I picked against them. I feel like an absolute idiot. Someday they're maybe not going to play a good game. But it doesn't feel like today is one of those days. They just played such a good game. Really impressed by the poise. And then, again, the running game we talked about, and Kalen Black had 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hemby had 53. But they had 40 rushes in this game for 185. They're really able to just control the ground game. Elijah Surratt continues to win balls. Elijah Surratt, too, like, how many back shoulder fades is he going to catch? Like, it's just such beauty seeing really, really good back shoulder fades. Fernando Mendoza and him are just so in sync. He wins so frequently on those passes. Guys run by, and he's just sitting there with the ball. So, sucks for Oregon. Another big-time game, another rematch in the playoffs where they got absolutely cooked by a team. I don't know if this is going to be a landing issue. But he hasn't won these games so far in his career. He lost to Washington twice. We can remember both of those. The Pac-12 game at Washington, the Pac-12 championship game that he lost the year in 2023. 2024. He, goes undefeated. He wins all the big games in his thing and then gets absolutely curb stopped by Ohio State. He goes back this year, able to avenge his one loss in the season, and they get absolutely curb stomped by Indiana. So I'm not out on him. He's a really, really good coach, but this team is going to be losing both of their coordinators this year, so they're probably going to be losing Dante Moore. How are they going to bounce back? I have good faith in Lane, but one of the things is like his calling card is defense. He was a defensive coordinator guy, and in these losses, his defenses have been getting absolutely shredded. Like, look, there's a thing where you get blown out by Indiana. Okay, it's whatever, but Fernando Mendoza was 17 of 20 for 5 touchdown passes. Like, he didn't break a sweat out there. Like, there's differences of doing this, and outside of the Texas Tech game, we really haven't seen this Oregon defense, really be great. They let up a bunch of yards in their game against JMU. So we'll see how they all recover. We'll see where this goes. They have a bunch of top-line recruits. We'll see if that can transfer over to another good year. As they continue to be really good in the Big Ten, they've had 2 really good seasons so far, but it's just going to be interesting to see how this team continues to fold and how they work in these big games where they've certainly struggled the last 2 years, 3 years if you go back to when they're in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think a rumor I saw was Levitt's going to go to Oregon, and that means Dante Moore's probably gone. Levitt is from Portland, so it could make sense if everything shakes out in the portal. And I also saw a lot of things online, KB, about how old this Indiana team is versus how young this Oregon team is, which is kind of what Cignetti does. I think you hit on it before in the last week or two, where he just gets older guys in the portal that are pretty solid and puts them in plugs and plays. I mean, Marsha's older, Hoover's older, and obviously he's good. Got to be decent recruiting. And he's got a lot of old JMU guys as well. So we'll see how things transition as these COVID guys start aging out, and then obviously you get in the guys that he's recruiting and getting from the portal. But yeah, not much else to say. Really curious.
That's a good point, Chris.
Yeah.
The one thing though is this is year 2 for him, so it's not like you can build a recruiting class because all your recruits are freshmen and sophomores. Charlie Barker, whatever his name is.
Becker, is he from somewhere else?
Becker, he's a sophomore, so he's one of the recruits. He's a true sophomore guy, I believe.
Yeah, he's from Nashville.
Yeah, so this is his first year playing. He redshirted last year, so it looks like, or maybe he was a recruit somewhere else, but he's a young player.
Sophomore.
True sophomore. So he's a young player, right? And so when you look at that, it's like, okay, well, his young players are starting to make an impact. So in the next year, maybe we see a less of an interest in the portal as he starts and continues to develop the high school recruiting, and that his guys can actually be that way, because he didn't get to JMU by taking a bunch of recruits, right? He had a bunch of homegrown guys that were juniors and sophomores that have been able to help him this next 2 years. But this is the year where he potentially wins a championship. Really impressive. I'm rooting for them. I got to pick against them to try to win the College Bowl Mania.
It could go down a tiebreaker, baby. That'd be nuts.
Yep, I'm rooting for Indiana, obviously, to potentially win their first national championship, which is really fun. Miami winning, obviously, is the U back. We thought that they maybe not even making this playoff, and they have an opportunity at the
Fuck Notre Dame. Said it. They didn't want them to be here. I'm glad they made it. Their lines are worth being in this playoff. So thanks to the committee for giving Miami a chance. They, the head-to-head matters. And I do want to shout out the Bowl Mania since KB brought it up. I'm pretty sure Aiden Ramsey has it locked up. He's 32-13, 30-15 is the next guy. So, shout out to him as well, both in the 99th percentile. But I'm going to tweet it out. But Aiden Ramsey, if you listen at all, we need to get your Venmo so I can give you $50. Pretty much it's locked up. I'll tweet it out as well, but he won it. And obviously KB hit it on. Right now, I'm only up by one game. It's going to come down to a tiebreaker, which is points if Miami wins. But I want the Hoosiers, baby. I want to be 3-0 against KB. So just start the podcast to feel pretty good. I know we play some college football, the game, and we have a pretty close head-to-head there too. So this is a little edge and a little friendly rivalry between some good friends. So just want to bring that up. I'll just say it again. Aiden Ramsey, pretty much congratulations. You got it wrapped up, my guy. We'll tweet it out as well. Not much else to talk about, KB. We're going into the game. I believe the line opened up to 7.5 for Indiana being favored. And I know we'll break that down in the upcoming days or so. But thank you guys as always. From me, it's been a heck of a time. It's been a decent playoff. Obviously, blowouts are going to happen, as KB has ranted about. But when you have a team like Indiana that's just good and makes plays, it's just going to be the way it is. Looking forward to the portal wrapping up this week. Some big names are still out there. Levitt, Raiola, et cetera, and we'll keep our finger on the pulse as things keep going. Thanks as always. Also, Michigan State freshman moved in. Cade Coffin from East Kentwood was there, so I just want to shout that out as well. Fitz was with the boys. Looking forward to seeing what happens with my Spartans. As always, go green.
Yeah, thanks as always for listening. One more game left until we get into off-season conversation, off-season moves. Obviously, a lot of moving parts there. Continue to send ideas, continue to ask questions. We appreciate it as always. Go Blue.